Good evening, social media.
Hi, social media. Happy second night of Hanukkah. Happy Christmas season. We are going to be talking about Christmas or holiday memories in the military. That seems to be a universal, I think, Sean, as anybody who joins the military is going to spend a Christmas holiday, away from home and family. At least
Definitely.
one, maybe many more than that.
Well, let's get everybody in here and get this holiday party rolling.
Get the show on the road.
Ho holiday open conversation. Here we go.
Ho ho holiday.
Ho ho holiday.
Hello. Oh, we didn't mute everybody, Sean.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our VBC happy hour, our last VBC happy hour of 2022. We do have another program tomorrow night. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but this is our year-end VBC happy hour for December 19th. I am Todd DiPastino. I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. We do this every week at 7 p.m. Eastern, where we get together with veterans and have veterans share stories. And we've gotten into this habit of, like, the last Monday of the month that we have a program, we do an open conversation, and it's rapidly becoming my favorite forum or format, because it's just what we're able to discuss, the stories that we're able to bring in, the variety of people that we're able to hear from is just a lot of fun. Is Bob McCormick, are you wearing is that a Christmas hat? That is the oddest looking hat. Yeah, it is. Okay, there. I wanted to. Okay, I wasn't sure. He's got the ears and everything. I love it. Thank you very much. Chris Parolo, you look like a angry elf or something. You good to see you with your hat on. I love it. Sean, I love this because they're muted and we can say anything we want. They can't, sass us back. So
have at it.
This is perfect. We're going to be talking about Christmas memories tonight, or holiday memories, being away from home and family while you're in the military. We're also looking forward to welcoming a couple new people here who have maybe joined us briefly before, but haven't been able to talk a little bit. This is Michael Horton. We have him from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we have John H. Brown from Charleston, West Virginia, author of two novels about the Vietnam War, and John is a Vietnam veteran himself. I thought also, if we have time, maybe get into the 50th anniversary of Linebacker II, the famous Christmas bombings of 1972. We could talk about that. I know, Ben Wright, I'm sure you have memories of that time, of those 11 days, 12 days of bombings in 1972. And we could, get into some of that. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, of course, like we do every week. And our sponsor tonight is D&D Auto Salvage. I have yet to go to D&D and take all that metal, but I was hoping to get there this week if the weather allows me to, and get some money for myself and for the Veterans Breakfast Club. If you take some recycling down to one of their locations in Lawrenceville or Tarentum, they'll pay you for the metal that you bring, and they'll also make a donation to the Veterans Breakfast Club. D&D Auto Salvage has been around for 50 years. They do metal recycling, ferrous and non-ferrous. They do auto salvage, of course. And you can learn more about their rates and more about what they offer at dndautosalvage.com. That's dndautosalvage.com. We're very grateful to them because they have supported us for the past 2.5 years. I mean, through the pandemic, with online and with our magazine ads. We're very grateful to D&D. They've been such loyal and wonderful sponsors, and we love to support them any way that we can because they support us. And another big supporter of ours is Tobacco-Free Adagio Health. And it was wonderful. For the first time, we were able to have people from Tobacco-Free Adagio Health at our breakfast in Beaver. And that was just on Pearl Harbor Day, our year-end breakfast in Beaver County, which is northwest here of Pittsburgh. And they were there for the first time, and it was so cool to have them see kind of what we do in person. And again, these are people who have been supporting us through the pandemic, and with the Scuttlebutt podcast and with our magazine and our online programs and in-person programs. Sean, you just did a special Scuttlebutt with tobacco free that was just released today.
Yes, Diane Mahalchik, who had joined us at the Beaver event at Seven Oaks, she joined me for a Scuttlebutt recording the day prior. We had a really wonderful conversation about all of the programs that they have on offer, but she's also very knowledgeable about the hazards of smoking. I did not know that vaping, we talked a bit more about this because I was so intrigued by it. If you smoke one, I think it's called a canister of vaping, it's equal to one full pack of cigarettes. The percentage of tobacco you get from one is equal to a full pack of cigarettes. I didn't know that, but she was wonderful and really opened up the doors to anybody who is interested in quitting smoking. She said, just call us and we are happy to work with you. It's all free of charge. They're a wonderful organization, and Diana's really a really wonderful person to connect with if you're interested in quitting smoking.
So I know nothing about vaping. I really don't. So it's that those little canisters, they are kind of nicotine delivery systems.
Yeah.
And they deliver nicotine much more efficiently than, say, a cigarette does or a cigar does.
Concentrated. And we were talking on the podcast about how we don't know the effects of vaping even at this point. We don't have the research to back up if you were to vape for 20 years. As we do the same with cigarettes, and because you're ingesting the mist, the steam into your lungs, and right. The chemicals that are part of it are all pretty nasty. I would say listen to the podcast if you get a chance. I'll put the link in the chat. She's truly wonderful and has a wonderful military family that we talk about a bit as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to show. I just saw on Facebook these photos on our Facebook page that Sean posted, and Sean took these photos on December 7th at Beaver County at Seven Oaks Country Club in Beaver. And what was special about this breakfast is we probably had 120 people, and then we had another 60 sixth graders from Dutch Ridge Elementary School. And these kids come with their teachers, and they come with even some family members, and they come prepared. They have a list of questions that they ask the veterans. They have to interview veterans there kind of before the program gets started and then after the program is over. And Sean took these wonderful photos of the kids just walking up to the vets, and the vets just answering every question, showing them a little bit about their own service and about what they know about their branch of service. And I saw these pictures on Facebook last night, and I just thought, this is like the VBC at its very best. This is exactly what we aim to do. We aim to kind of educate and inspire. And I think it's always wonderful to have people like veterans who have these extraordinary experiences. Here's Warren Goss, World War II veteran, landed on Utah Beach on D-Day, telling his story to this girl, a sixth grade girl here. I think it's always so great to have people like veterans who have these experiences, share them with young people. I think there's something invigorating and inspiring about that. So Sean, thank you for taking these great pictures. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, it was awesome to see the kids really engaging the veterans, and the veterans Todd and I were talking before we started the program tonight about how welcoming the atmosphere is in our in-person events, and how both of us as civilians felt so welcomed. Even 2 years ago when I started with VBC, I didn't know how I would be perceived walking into a room. As a civilian, just don't know. But we both said that it's such a welcoming room. Even on Saturday when we had our latest in-person breakfast, I mentioned to Todd that I saw two boys that were sort of lost. You could tell they didn't quite know where to sit. I took them over, found a table, and here John DeLallo, one of our great members, is sitting at the table. And I said, guys, you're going to sit with John DeLallo. He's a teacher. And without missing a beat, John was like, come on, guys, sit down, let's chat. Like, he really just brought them in. They had a great time. It's you just can't say enough about it.
I cannot imagine what John DeLallo had to say to those kids. That's fantastic. Joe Boscia, you were there at Seven Oaks Country Club in Beaver on December 7th. I know that you've joined us tonight. You don't normally join us online, so I'm glad that you did. Joe Boscia, you are here?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you tonight, Don?
Good. And your camera isn't on, but that's okay. We can still hear you. And I do have this picture, Joe, of you in the Army. Joe, you were an Army officer and you served in many places, but one of those places is Vietnam. And you were an advisor to Arvin, correct?
Yes, to a district government in one of the provinces.
And when were you in Vietnam?
I was there from March of 68 to March of 69.
Okay. Okay. So you were there for the Christmas of 68.
Well, no, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. But if I could back up for a second to a previous Christmas.
Sure.
I had gone on active duty at the end of August in 1965 and went to infantry officers basic and airborne school. And I was able to come home on leave at the end of 65 for that Christmas. And then I went to Germany, which is what I had asked for as an assignment. And while I was there in 66, there was a big drawdown of officers and NCOs to help support the war in Vietnam. I had planned on going home in the end of 66 for my Christmas leave. And the colonel offered me a company command, which I couldn't turn down. Mm-hmm. So I was in Germany for December of 66. And when it came to Christmas Eve, Mike Bell, who later became our best man, and I decided we'd go out to dinner at a local guest house near the caserne and have dinner before we went to mass. So we did that. And it was very interesting because we were having dinner. There were a lot of Germans in the place. We were the only Americans. And the Germans actually sent us over some drinks for Merry Christmas, which was really neat. And we talked to them for a little bit. And then later on, we went back to the caserne and we went to mass that evening. And that was my first Christmas in the Army. Kind of different, I guess. And I enjoyed it. And our best man and I have talked about it many times. But the year I was in Vietnam, Sue, my wife, was a teacher, so she had Christmas time off as a teacher. And we made arrangements that I would take my R&R and meet her for Christmas that year. So we picked Hawaii because that was really halfway between the two of us. So that Christmas from Vietnam, I didn't spend in Vietnam, I spent in Hawaii. It was a great 7 days of R&R. It was different in terms of growing up in Pittsburgh with lots of snow, because when we went to midnight mass on the Army base, it rained that night, and you could hear the rain on the metal roof of the chapel that we were at. But that was my second kind of different Christmas in Vietnam, and in the Army, I mean. And after that, before I got out, a couple years later, we had Christmas at our own home and invited some of the people on the base over to us. So those are my memories of it.
I won't ask you what you did on the break there, the leave in Hawaii, but I will ask you what it was like to go back to Vietnam. That just strikes me as such a difficult trip to make. You know, you see your wife for 7 days, and then you have to go back.
Well, it was, but I think more so for Sue than for me. For me, I had a change of an assignment just a month before that brought me into the province from the district. And that was a much better situation. We rarely got mortared as we did in the district. We actually had flush toilets and other things, a mess hall. So I was going back to something that wasn't quite as bad as what I had for my first 9 months.
I just want to share this picture with people because I so admire your farmer's tan here. Oh man. And clearly there was some damage done here to a hooch.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the mortar round that landed on that was right over my desk. It wasn't the only time we got hit like that, but I was doing the monthly report that we sent to Saigon, and the report wound up full of shrapnel. And some rear echelon major in Saigon had the nerve to call me up and complain that there were all these little bits of metal in my report, and what was that all about?
Oh my gosh.
So I told him I'd be happy to show him if he wanted to come out and share it with me.
Tell me this. Yeah, this is bad.
This was the other mortar round at a different time, landed in our Jeep. And the worst part of it, to the left of this picture, was our shower, and the shrapnel, of course, from mortar rounds goes up, and it took out our shower. So that was 2 strikes against us. And I told my counterparts, the Vietnamese, I said, you tell your buddies in the VC that now they've made it personal for me.
Yeah, they took out your shower. You have a lot of pictures of your counterparts here. What were they like? I mean, what did you, here's you with some counterparts, it seems here also. What did you think of the Vietnamese, our allies?
I liked them. I got along well with them. As a matter of fact, I wound up getting an award after I left from the different district officials. There was a variety among them. Some of the popular force officers and NCOs weren't very well trained, of course. The regional force company commander had been fighting for decades, and he was really good. The district people, they were pretty good too. This was my counterpart at the end at the province level when I was the S5 advisor. And he didn't speak a whole lot of English, but again, he was good to get along with. What I found was if you went out of your way to try to identify with the Vietnamese and speak their language and observe their customs, you got along well with them. But like my boss, he hated them, and it was obvious, and they hated him back in return.
Jim Roberts is on with us tonight, and he was also an advisor in Vietnam. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyhow. Do you have any idea what happened to these counterparts of yours after the fall of Saigon?
No, I don't, because after I left and went back, I really didn't keep in touch with any of them. So I don't know.
Did that make the end of the war, the fall of Saigon, especially poignant or difficult or sad for you that you just, these people you got pretty close with, you don't know if they survived it?
Well, yeah, the day that we learned about the fall of Saigon, I was at work at the office, and I went into my boss and told him I needed to go home. I was that upset.
Oh.
And it has really bothered me all those years that we abandoned those people the way we did.
Can you tell me, are these grenades?
Yeah, they are. One of the things my boss, the major, liked to do was when villagers brought in things like this for rewards, because there was a rewards program, he would spend his time disassembling them and making them inert. And so I was able to bring a couple of them home. Unfortunately, you saw in a previous picture the mortar round fins that were lined up with me and Lieutenant Lanier. And I had, there they are. You can see that's how many hit us this one time. I had a couple of those, and like a fool, when I went on R&R, I didn't take any home, and I didn't ship any home, but I had 2 in my baggage when I was leaving Saigon, along with those grenades. And the MPs at the checkpoint when we were getting on the plane found the mortar rounds, or the fins, I should say, and said, "Captain, you can't take those. That's contraband." I said, "Nonsense." And they said, "Well, you want to get on the plane or not?" I said, "Of course I do." And I said, "You don't have any right to take those." "Well, you're going to lose your slot on the plane, Captain." And they took them. And of course, they wanted them as souvenirs. but they didn't dig enough into my baggage to find the 2 grenades.
To find the grenades.
Yeah. But I would have rather had the tail fins because they meant more to me than the grenades did.
Oh, boy. Yeah, these are, and you have wonderful pictures here of the local people. I guess you got to know somewhat.
That last one, Lieutenant Howe, he was my counterpart. He was the assistant district advisor. That was one of their holidays.
How about that? You know, Joe, I want to open it up to other people, and I want to invite anybody here who has, a memory of holidays, in the military or holidays overseas, away from home. I know Annette is going to share with us. We have a wonderful picture. Is Betsy Tanner with us? Yeah, Betsy, there you are. Good to see you. I'm going to ask you to unmute because you sent me a wonderful photo. Rick, good. I'll mute you, Rick. Let me share this. Here, this is more of, look at these. What's remarkable is that you still see this. Rick Arisman, you traveled to Vietnam with us. It's remarkable that you still see these image, this very scene here is going on today. But this is a wonderful picture that Betsy sent, one of 2 wonderful pictures. Betsy, are you in this picture?
Yeah, I'm the second from the left.
Right there.
Correct.
What a cutie.
Thank you.
So this is Christmas 1968.
Correct, yes.
And Dong Tam.
Yeah, we were down in the 4th Corps at the most southern of the infantry divisions.
This is Mekong Delta.
Time, yeah.
I think, and to correct me if I'm wrong, I just would imagine the Christmas season being an especially hard time for service men and women overseas, because they're, lonely, dangerous, in dangerous places away from home, homesick. Did you encounter that as a Donut Dolly?
Our unit was we purely mobile, so we went out to the fire bases. We didn't have a unit,
Center.
a center. Thank you, a center back in Dong Tam. We were so busy this entire time that we didn't really have time to get lonely. Certainly, we were, we weren't bored or lonely this whole time. We did spend the entire Christmas Day trying to hit as many units as we could. We always traveled in pairs, so we had 3 different units, groups, girls going out, and then we all met back up for a midnight Christmas Eve. I guess starting Christmas Eve, we had a midnight Christmas Eve service at a Catholic chapel that one of the divisions had built.
Well, Nancy, maybe you weren't lonely, but did you sense it among the, servicemen that you entertained or met around that time?
I think they were always lonely. They didn't ask to be there for the most part. Our focus was the enlisted man.
Yeah.
Who got drafted and sent over. They were 18 or 19, and they just wanted to get through their year in Vietnam and get home again.
Oh my gosh. Mark Spirdigliosi, thank you so much for sending this picture. I just heard a ding on my email, and it's a wonderful picture that Mark sent. Joe Boscia, did you ever see any Donut Dollies in Vietnam? I'm going to ask you to unmute.
No, I did not. Where we were, we didn't have anybody come out like that. But, when we went into Da Nang, we also didn't get a chance to see them because it was usually in and out real quick. But you mentioned about people being lonely or being entertained by the Donut Dollies. The one thing I wanted to add to what I had said before was I had always wanted to see Bob Hope, who was one of my heroes, and he was coming to Da Nang that Christmas. And I told Sue I had a real tough decision to make. Did I go see Bob Hope or meet her in Hawaii? That became a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another great picture, Betsy. Are you in this one?
Yes, that's me walking on the left, walking toward, I believe this is Tara from Nevada, and Pam, the one on the right, the blonde, is was from Atlanta, Georgia.
And what game are you playing? Do you have any memory?
I'm not sure we were actually playing a game or if we were just giving handouts. You can see in the bottom right corner, one of the GIs has a piece of white paper. We did take along short timers, calendars, a letter that they could send home before they got home, which kind of describes how they should be treated in a humorous way when they did return home.
Oh, I love that letter. I know exactly what you're talking about. One vet recently gave that to me and I was going to share it. Oh yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are three of us here, so I'm not sure where we were. I moved recently a year and a half ago, and I haven't uncovered all my own personal pictures.
Betsy, thank you so much for sharing the link to this event tonight with the American Red Cross Overseas Association. And thank you for joining us and sharing these pictures. People who haven't joined us before should know that Veterans Breakfast Club has a special love for Donut Dollies, and that's not too strong a word. It's just to see how the veterans have reacted to whenever you join us. It's just such a wonderful thing. But I'm looking at this picture and I'm thinking, were you ever scared?
We got camp in Dongtang. We did get mortared. We had a bunker to go to. I was never scared flying helicopters. We often in the brigade, the C&C helicopter of the brigade, we would take that if the CO didn't need it, and fly out to the fire bases. I was never in a unit where we traveled on the roads outside the base. Some of the units did do that. But I was always either on the base, we did Kool-Aid runs, or I was in the air on a helicopter in a fire base. And one night we were in I-Corps, Camp Eagle, supporting 101st. We thought we might have to spend the night on a fire base because they didn't get a helicopter in when they were supposed to come pick us up. But we did get back that evening. There are a couple of other Donut Dollies here. Susan Smith.
I was just about to say that, Susan Smith. Hello, Susan. I think Ahava Martin too.
And Rosemary is on, I believe.
Rosemary, that's right. Yeah, Rosemary Schwobel. Yes. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi.
Were you ever scared in Vietnam?
Was I ever scared? Only momentarily. When the rockets came in, it was, either hit the ground or get to the bunker. But when it was over, it was over. It was sort of like, I liken it to a thunder and lightning storm.
Okay.
That's close. That's close.
Do you remember Christmas time or the holidays?
Oh, yeah. That was the best Christmas of my life.
And look at Susan. I'm seeing Susan nodding yes.
I worked 13 hours that day, and we were doing similar to Betsy, flying over guys who were in the boonies on patrol, and we could just fly over and wave to them. We had the guns wrapped in red ribbon and a Santa Claus, in the chopper too, as a co-pilot. And yeah, and when we could stop, we would serve meals at fire bases. And I think I ate 3 turkey dinners that day. I mean, it was just so wonderful to be doing something.
And so please elaborate just a little bit more. Why was that your best Christmas ever?
Because I was helping.
Yeah. You were serving.
And we were there because we wanted to be there, which makes a huge difference.
Yes, it does. It does. And, I see that in the differences among the generations of veterans. Those who have served since the end of the draft, whether they liked it or not, they feel ownership of their service, the way that I imagine that some draftees don't. Susan, you nodded your head affirming Rosemary's statement that Christmas was great in Vietnam.
I was Sue in Vietnam, so I know that my name, I don't know how to change that, but anyway, you have to call me Sue if you would. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I was in Cameron Army, and we joined with the girls in Cameron Air Base, and they had caribou planes and painted the noses on the planes red, and they called them the Santa Boo flights. And we'd made, I guess maybe the Air Force girls had made like out of cardboard what looked like a fireplace mantle, all wrapped up and everything. And so when we would land someplace, we would take out the fireplace and hang up some stockings and have candy out. And we may have had a Santa Claus too, Rosemary, I don't remember. And it was, a long day. And before that day, I was feeling lonely. And I mean, it was my first Christmas away from home. It's like Christmas away from home.
How old were you?
22.
Okay.
But, yeah, we were there to serve the guys. And that's the whole, it's like the meaning of Christmas, is giving yourself away for other people.
Yeah.
And so once the day got started, it was the most meaningful Christmas ever, Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
It was our honor. It was just wonderful. Yeah.
Todd.
Yes.
This is Bob Flagg. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share my Christmas. First of all, I wanted to ask Betsy, where was she? We never got to see her. I was with the Mobile Riverine Force, Echo 3rd of the 60th, and we would go out for a week, 2 weeks at a time. And so we never got to see the girls, and they never dropped in. But Christmas 67, the week of Christmas 67, we were out, and yeah, we normally took our C's with us, but they decided they were going to send us a hot meal out there that whatever day it was. But the neat part was a chaplain came out also, and he performed a service out in the field for us. And but what really spooked me, and I said, that white collar you're putting around that draped down, that's scaring me. Charlie could see that. He said, don't worry about it. And but it was really, really impressive. And like I say, he gave communion, the whole 9 yards out in the field. And that, that's something I've never forgotten.
That's those chaplains who went out there in the fields, to minister to servicemen, and I'm in awe of them, like I'm in awe of the Donut Dollies.
Yes.
Without a weapon. Oh boy, Rick Arisman, you have your hand up. Were you on board an LST for Christmas?
Well, I was, and I was in Barcelona for Christmas 1970. I had access to word processing and a mimeograph. I composed family grams while I was there, and I'd like to share a few paragraphs.
Family grams. Could you explain first what a family gram is?
Well, basically, the CO of the ship sends out a family gram to the families of the sailors aboard and brings them up to date on things. So
Okay.
I composed my own for families that I mailed home. This was December 27th, 1970, having completed its amphibious exercises at Porto Scudo, Sardinia, Task Force 61 got underway for Barcelona, arriving the morning of December 21st. The T-Bone, my LST 1156, moored a few hundred yards from Paseo de Colón, a major thoroughfare within sight of the large monument in honor of Columbus, was pointing eastward into the Mediterranean Sea over a replica of the Santa Maria, which is moored several hundred feet behind us. Barcelona couldn't have been a prettier sight to a sailor away from home during the Christmas holidays. All of her streets and alleys are strung with beautiful, colorful lights in assorted shapes and designs, and all done to perfection and accurateness. The fountains are spraying in an array of colors, and lampposts are hung with tinsels. Barcelonians seem to be a very happy people as they bustle throughout the streets in search of the true meaning of the Christmas spirit, though I believe they had found it long ago as they gazed at beautiful shop window displays. Though there were several beautiful trees, I found a true American Christmas tree in the Barrio Gothica, the Gothic Quarter, the old Roman city. Beneath it sat the Holy Family, not as human figures, but represented as iron and wood symbols, while Christmas music played from under the branches. Throughout Spain's three-day Christmas festival, the streets were crowded with smiling, cheerful faces as carriages were drawn up and down Rambla Street, and Barcelonians wore party hats and carried various noisemakers. Groups of youth sang. It seemed more like a New Year's celebration than a birthday. Our Christmas present arrived just prior to Christmas Eve when Admiral Zumwalt's 68th Seagram arrived over our fleet broadcasts, authorizing all petty officers on all ships to maintain civilian clothes aboard ship for wearing ashore. And I have a copy of that. Thank you.
So that was a big deal to be able to wear civilian
Oh,
clothes.
yeah. We didn't stand out like we did in our uniforms.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that was my memory.
Oh, is that great? Well, that's a good one. Barcelona at Christmas. It's hard to imagine much better than that, Rick.
Libby will enjoy that.
Hey, I got this great photo right now from Mark Spiradigliosi. Mark, if you were to unmute, this looks like a good Christmas.
And that was in 1968. The First Cavalry Division moved from LZ Evans down to the Phuc Vinh Tay Ninh area, right along the Cambodian border, at the end of November, if my memory serves me right. And as we came back, we were on stand down, and you can see the stupid little redheaded guy on the left that ended up smoking a cigarette and having a drink and Budweiser there. So we were celebrating Christmas, and a few people in the background there. But just that's the only picture I can remember about Christmas in Vietnam. At the same time that we did that, there was a bit of a stand down. So we were doing a transition out of the I Corps and down in, I believe that was 3 Corps. 3 Corps back then. Not exactly sure of what the Corps was, but it was Phuc Vinh Tay Ninh. And we were going into Cambodia before it was fashionable.
Yeah. Yeah. Before it was cool. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And that is quite a move from I Corps, Camp Evans, way up there near the DMZ. But that's what you guys did.
Yeah. The entire division packed up and moved down.
Wow.
Yeah. Back then it was, they had done a lot of, engagement up in that Ashore Valley, Camp Way, all of those areas. We moved down there and then went back at it again then in January of 69. If my memory serves me right, Todd, I sometimes struggle with memories, but
Well, Mark, and this is, I don't want to, digress too far here, but a move like that from I Corps, where you're mainly fighting NVA, well-equipped, well-trained, regular Army soldiers, to the Cambodian border, where I imagine there are more Viet Cong, although NVA were infiltrating down there also. Did you fight a different kind of war down there in 3 Corps?
it really didn't. It was the same battle, Todd. It just, we switched sides. It's halftime for me back then because I was going to leave in April, but it was the same thing. We we did engage more Viet Cong, but because of the proximity to it, to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that was the dump out point right where we were at of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So they would, the entire spectrum was to me not a lot of different. Maybe somebody else could chime in that had a different perspective of that. If there's any other cavers on here, and if they are, by the way, Gary Owens and Merry Christmas.
Gary Owens and Merry Christmas.
Gary Owen was an Irish fighting tune. It was a lilt that was done by General George Armstrong Custer as he was going into battle. The 7th Cavalry, whom I was with, their designated song was Gary Owen. And sometimes look it up and listen to it. But you've seen those crests that I have with my unit on there. It has a raised sword, and that was Custer's fight going into battle at that point. I'll give you a night sometime on General George Armstrong Custer. Great, best guy in the world.
Thank you, Mark. Oh, is this great? And that Grunseth from Madison, Wisconsin, you have a wonderful picture on the cover of your wonderful book. And those who get our email, our weekly email, our VBC email, VBC bulletin, we call it, every Monday, will have noticed this week and last week, I've been promoting this book as a Christmas present. And I'm doing that for 2 reasons. Number one, because I love the book. It's beautiful, beautiful poetry. Your brother wrote wonderful letters, and it's a collaborative effort of you and your brother writing about this, this traumatic time of your brother in the Army as a journalist, and in Vietnam, and then you at home as a student at the University of Madison, as Wisconsin-Madison. That's one of the reasons I'm sharing it, because I really do honestly think it's good. The other reason is I kind of want to butter you up to see if we can maybe get an excerpt from the book in VBC magazine sometime. So we'll talk about that now that I've gone public with that. This is a picture of your brother in Vietnam.
It is, and it's my favorite picture because it says so much. Putting a Christmas tree in a helmet, it just tugs at my heartstrings.
It does, doesn't it?
And I've got a couple sentences that he wrote around Christmas time in one of his letters that really, it's really poignant, because he says, "I hope you had a good time during the holidays. It's just amazing how little Christmas means over here. The dry season is in full swing, and intense dry heat with unimaginable clouds of dust that don't provide a white Christmas." And he said Bob Hope was over at Cu Chi, and some of the guys from his unit got to go, but he didn't. And he just said that I was told that Hope's opening line was, "It's great to be back at Cu Chi by the sea," the VC, that is. So that was, and then he said they had at 6 p.m. Christmas Eve, a ceasefire went into effect. There was no one firing or reconning by fire around the perimeter at Dao Tiang, and that was also up near the Cambodian border. The artillery batteries were ghost towns. No one was yelling fire mission as usual throughout the night. Frankly, the silence made everyone, including myself, nervous. This war is usually a constant, noisy affair for 24 hours. It was hard to imagine that someone in the nearby vicinity hated your presence. No one was fooled by the silence. Most of us spent Christmas Day in our bunkers expecting the worst. At precisely 6 p.m. Christmas Day, the local artillery simultaneously fired about a dozen rounds from 8 inches to 105 millimeter howitzers to 175 millimeters. The VC returned the compliment with about 30 mortar and rocket rounds a few minutes later. The people manning the bunkers around the perimeter began exchanging fire with VC snipers. At this point, everyone relaxed. We were back to normal, back to the war. That must sound like a sorry excuse for Christmas. It was, and I'll never forget the holiday season, 1968.
What a writer your brother was.
Oh my gosh, I know, he was really good. And this was, he had been in the field in a track, in hand-to-hand combat, had just come in as company clerk. So this is brand new job. He's in the company. So here they are in their bunker, And he's just saying, wow, at this point, we're back to normal.
We're
The
back to
world's
normal.
on.
It's like the Christmas truce of 1914, right? Like
And then
this.
he wrote me, when I was at Madison during the anti-war protests, he wrote me a letter saying, Christmas, it's Christmas, bah, humbug. I just don't feel the whole Christmas spirit around here. So, I don't know if you saw, last week, I found a handwritten note of my mother, her list for the Christmas boxes she sent. And it was just kind of interesting. We sent boxes like early, like in November, or, because it took a long time to get there, but it was things like Vienna sausages, Kraft cheese, crackers, cookies, Bonnie Bell weatherproof or lip balm. Let's see, Castile soap, Tang, Shaker pudding, Kool-Aid, Almay unscented moisture cream for the sunburn. And I just really got, he needed razor blades, a bottle of Bufferin, a jar of roasted peanuts. It was just interesting, but I do remember, and Ziploc plastic bags, note paper and envelopes so he could write letters, and 2 pounds of hard candy. So it was such a hodgepodge. And I found this and sent it to some of the people in his unit that I have since connected with because of the book. And they were thrilled. They loved it. They loved it. They said, yeah, they all wanted Vienna sausages and Shaker pudding.
That's so funny. So those are things that were requested by him and his buddies. Right.
And especially he sunburned so badly. He wanted all that lotion and lip balm and his notebooks and toothbrush, peanut butter. So I don't know if other people had that experience with the Vietnamese, Vietnam Christmas boxes. We had to individually wrap cookies and brownies because they had to be in saran wrap or plastic wrap because bugs could get into them, and so we had to wrap everything individually.
And how long did it take for those boxes to actually arrive and be opened?
Boy, I think we did them like at least a month to 6 weeks. We were doing that in late fall, early, October, November. And he sent, he had another letter where he said your box came and everybody, they were thrilled with it. It's in his handwriting here. He said, your package arrived completely intact. Everything you sent is just great. I couldn't ask for more. The brownies disappeared minutes after I opened the box. Slowly, I'm consuming the sheer volume of groceries. And they had sent him National Geographic magazines to read. He appreciated that, So it was interesting.
Well, neat. I see a bunch of hands up. Joe Griffey's, you were going to say something.
Yeah, first of all, Merry Christmas to everyone. Todd, Sean, great show that you guys put on. Rosemary, Susan, Betsy, you are the unsung heroes of Vietnam. I was fortunate enough to meet a lot, speak to a lot of Donut Dollies. Sometimes that name kind of a little condescending, but they know what we mean, and that's what they were. We are working here back in New Jersey with, I think you have Richard Sands, the author, on your show a while back, and Richard is leading the charge with Congresswoman Cheryl to get the congressional gold, and a few other people to get the congressional gold medal for the Donut Dollies. We feel very confident this year we're going to get that done. But what we don't really appreciate about our Donut Dollies is the fact that they got post-traumatic stress. They got hit with Agent Orange. Some Donut Dollies died in helicopter crashes. They get no benefits. The billions of dollars, billions that we spend, too many of our Donut Dollies have already deceased, have passed on, using their own money to pay. I was told a story, Todd, by a woman that was told that when she goes to her doctor, do not tell them that you have Agent Orange because your medical insurance, private medical insurance, will not cover you for going to a war zone.
Oh,
We can't do enough with the few donut dollies that are left to thank them enough for their courage. They did, and they came out, I think, in them seersucker dresses. We've seen them a few times in the Highlands at Play Coup, and I just can't think of giving a better gift this Christmas than thanking the women. And if you saw that picture, Todd, that you guys posted maybe a half hour ago of the 6 or 8 donut dollies, they were all beautiful. Yes. My God, they could have stayed at home and were rock stars.
I know. I thought the same thing. They all look like movie stars to me.
And one other comment. The donut dollies were a little bit older. They had to go to college.
Right.
They had to have a college education because they wanted them older than most of the veterans. They were saying, look at that picture. I mean, you talk about Miss Americas. Every one of them are, I mean, how could they lose? And I just want to say thank you to them. What a great job they did. And they're still continuing watching out for one another. And in some ways still watching out for us. And they were our mothers, our sisters, our grandmothers at the age of 22 and 23 that represented our loved ones back home. And what a great gift tonight for you to have these ladies on. And thank all of them.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much. And Joe, if you have, I know that there's, you know, there's a way that people can support the Congressional Gold Medal for the Donut Dollies. If you have a link that you want to share, please do so in the chat, and we can.
I will send that to you tomorrow.
Very good.
And,
okay.
And Congresswoman Cheryl happens to be a Naval Academy, Air Force, I mean, Navy pilot. So we know we're going to get this done.
Yes, I would love to have her on the program sometime too. We have a number of donut dollies. I see Sam joined us here. Hava, you have been so patiently waiting with your hand up. Your hand must be tired at this point. It's been up for so long. How are you?
Good. And I was not a donut dolly, if you remember. I think you had some pictures a few years ago of me. Yes. But I had a 40-year career working with the Red Cross, with the military. And when people were over in Vietnam, when I started my career, I was at the Naval Hospital in Oakland, California, working with the military that came back who were injured in Vietnam. But a great memory I had of a Christmas overseas was in 2005. I was assigned in Korea, in Seoul, Korea. And for Christmas Day, we went to visit the patients at the hospital and actually talk about some of the lonely soldiers. Well, one of the soldiers who had a big family back home, rather than just stay, he actually wanted to be our Santa for the day. So he and I went to visit the patients, and he loved that. And a cute little memory that I have, we were going to visit the patients, and we went to visit one of the patients who was in labor, and but she didn't want to go to deliver until she got her present from Santa. So I still have that memory. And she says, I'm not going until I get my present from Santa. But we talk about the soldiers sometimes being lonely, and this was important for this major to be our Santa, so that he didn't have to think about his family being back home. So a little bit different memory than some of you have, but one that's always stuck with me. So.
And here's a picture of a Hava. I knew I had one here in my. Where are you here?
I'm in Bosnia.
Bosnia. That would have been in the 1990s.
Yeah, I was actually when the first of the soldiers went into Bosnia. I went with the first team of Red Cross people that went in the beginning in 1996. So.
And Hava, what was if you weren't called a donut dolly, what were you called?
A variety of different, but I was a Red Cross worker. I was a manager, a variety of different things. And even in the States, we wore those same uniforms, not just the ones that they wore in we wore those all. I think every Red Cross lady that started out, we all wore those same Red Cross uniforms, because they're still familiar to me. So, but anyway, just a little bit of a different memory, but talks about how the military can, struggle sometimes during the holidays too, and they want to be able to do things to help other people too, to overcome the loneliness. So.
Right. Nancy Smoyer, you've had your hand up for a while too. How are you?
I'm a Donut Dolly too, and I got on late, so I don't know if I see other Donut Dollies, and I don't know if they've talked yet. But I have a couple of little memories. I was in Coochie in '67 and saw Bob Hope there. Somebody else mentioned that.
Yeah.
And so we took packages or, toys, things out to the fire bases. And one of the pictures I have that I think is really cute is this one. We were handing out, I don't know, footballs and magazines and various other things. And we had a kazoo, which the lieutenant wanted. And he started playing this kazoo. And I thought it was so amusing that an officer was doing it. So I said, I want to take a picture, but you have to turn your head so I can be sure to see the bar on your shoulder playing your little toy. So I appreciated their enjoyment of the things that they got from strangers sent from home. But my parents, somebody else was talking about the packages, and I got a package from home which included a steamed pudding, which was a family tradition to have steamed pudding at Christmas. Except this one was all moldy.
Yeah.
Totally unable to be eaten.
Inedible.
There you go. And I didn't want to write Mom and Dad and say, this was a disgusting thing to look at. So I just said something like, it's wonderful to have the tradition carried on, or something like that. So they never knew.
And Nancy, you are the author of this book, Donut Dollies in Vietnam, Baby Blue Dresses and OD Green. And is this a kind of an account of, the whole Donut Dolly experience?
Of my Donut Dolly experience, yes, with some things from some of the other women that were there. It's both, it's letters and emails that I've written, letters that I wrote home from Vietnam, and then emails that I've written to various veteran groups since email.
Sharing your story.
So it's not only what happened in Vietnam, but it's the aftermath too, the effects. So, as somebody was saying, Agent Orange, PTSD, we have after effects as well.
Oh. Is what Joe said, and this is you, obviously, I'm guessing at Cu Chi,
right?
The 25th Division was. Nancy, it was really disturbing to hear Joe, and I've heard this story before, talk about, if you have one of the presumptive conditions of Agent Orange exposure, you can't tell your primary caregiver, your doctor, that you were exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, because it would be covered. And yet the VA doesn't cover you either. It's the classic catch-22. That is true. That has happened to Donut Dollies.
I have diabetes, no doubt, as a result from Agent Orange, because I have no other reason to have it. So, it's well controlled. It's not a problem. But anybody who is in Vietnam is presumptively eligible for benefits for Agent Orange. And yeah, right, we don't have VA benefits, but I have no problem with telling both health providers and other people that I have diabetes as a result of Agent Orange.
Oh boy. Thank you, Nancy, for joining us. Chris Parolo with the elf hat. How are you, Angry Elf?
I'm so angry. No, I feel better now that I can talk to you about something. Let me take this off for a second. First of all, hello, everybody, and good to be with you tonight. I'm going to shift a little gear here over to the Mediterranean. In 1975 and 76, I was stationed aboard the USS Little Rock in a town called Gaeta in Italy. This is about 90 miles north of Naples. And Little Rock was the Sixth Fleet flagship. And as the Sixth Fleet flagship, the Commander of Sixth Fleet, an admiral whose office is embarked aboard, was really reluctant to be out at sea on any given holiday, especially Christmas. So we were in port in 1975. It was my, I was only been aboard for about 4 or 5 months, but the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Department came through for us with a trip to Rome for midnight mass at the Vatican.
Nice.
1975.
See what the
And-
Navy gets to do? You see this? Rick Arisman, Barcelona, Chris Parolo. Nice.
In Italy. It was a great trip. But what I remember of it, we boarded a bus early in the evening, drove up to Rome. We had a wonderful meal somewhere nearby the Vatican. And then we went into St. Peter's Basilica, and we were sitting about 15 rows. If you look down from the ceiling there, we were at the 3 o'clock position from the altar, looking that way towards the altar. And the music was beautiful. The choir was wonderful. Pope Paul VI was the Pope at the time. And they brought him in. And I remember watching him conduct the Mass and how frail he was at that time. And that 2 priests had to hold him or support him every time he stood to do something in officiating the Mass, which was quite a long ceremony, by the way. But it should be a midnight mass at the Vatican. When it came time for communion, how they did that was at communion time, I saw these young persons were coming down on the end of the aisle there, and they were like 1 to every 3 aisles, and they were going to distribute communion and then move on to the next one, and you came up and went back. But I thought it was kind of strange. They were in their cassocks, and that it's called a surplice, and that's the white garment that they wear over top of that. And they were lacy white garments they wear. And I'm thinking to myself, how are these altar boys going to be giving communion? I didn't understand this. And then I realized they were all African priests.
Wow.
And that they were short of stature, which was normal. I mean, that was them. But it did not occur to me that they were priests. They were ordained priests and adults, but they were African priests. And it dawned on me that seeing that and thinking that and whatever, I thought to myself, you're not in Kansas anymore. You are at ground zero of the Catholic faith, and you are just one dumb American in a sea of hundreds of thousands of people from around the world that you have this common link to through your faith. And it just was an incredible experience and thought process there. So we had a very nice time there. We went out and then roamed around Vatican Square and got on the bus, and we went home. And that was like, that's got to be in my top 2 or 3 Christmases of all time, to spend that time in Rome, in the Vatican, for midnight mass. Next day, this is the other side of the story. Next day, of course, I took the watch. A ship is never asleep. You can't lock it up like an office building. There's always work on board, no matter what time or what holiday it is. So because there were married guys who had families and they had to open Christmas presents the next morning, the single guys would volunteer to stand the watches, so that the married men, even if they're assigned, they just swap out with the senior chief or something like that. So we would stand the watches on the holidays and those times like Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve and that, so they could be with their families. And the upside of that is some of them and then would have you over later in the afternoon or after your shift and that for dinner or just to celebrate with them. So it was a give and take like that. But I remember 75, Christmas of 75, that wonderful experience. And that was it. That's it. That was my Christmas story.
How neat. And thank you, Chris. And thank you for introducing me to the term surplice, which I didn't know. I should know that, but I don't know that at all. And Chad Riddle,
you weren't an altar boy?
I was not an altar boy.
Oh, okay, me neither.
I was not an altar boy. No, Chad Riddle, thank you for putting that definition there in the chat. We have some great comments here in the chat.
I was an altar boy.
You were an altar boy, so you knew what a surplice was.
Yes. We just called it a surplus.
Yeah, surplus. Right. Because you don't know any better, Chad. Surplice.
Hey, that's what we were told. You did not question the nun. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Todd, it was called a surplus.
Surplus. Not a surplus, but a surplus.
It's spelled with an ICE, but it's pronounced as if it were surplus.
Thank you.
Think of Army surplus.
Yes, right. Thank you very much.
Tell Ben Wright to bring one in sometime to a meeting.
Yes, that's right. Ben would have it. Ben would have access to it. Hey, I have surplus among my investments, Ben says here in the chat. Before we go to Bob McCormick, I want to know, is this John H. Brown? Do we have John Brown with us? John Brown, let me see. Because I don't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, where are you?
I have no idea. I'm in picture here.
I don't know where I am.
Where are you?
I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Where are you, John?
I'm in a place called Canaan Valley, West Virginia.
Canaan Valley. So you're not far from us here in Pittsburgh.
No, not too far.
Thank you for joining us. John is a veteran of the Americal Division, served in Vietnam 1969, 1970. And he did something very interesting. And I want to both let people know about these books and also ask him about them. He has two books, one called Augie's War, one called Augie's World, and they're novels. But my understanding is, would you call them autobiographical novels, John?
Yes, I think, that people ask me all the time whether they are. And what I say kind of in sideways is that you write what you know. And so the experiences that I wrote about in these two novels come right out of my background. I've changed the names to protect my family, that kind of thing. But honestly, I combined the growing up as an Italian American kid in northern West Virginia, and a lot of the things that I experienced growing up and working in my grandfather's Italian bakery, and all through grade school and high school. And then the idea is with the book kind of came out of that. And then when I went to Vietnam, I guess what happened was that I tried to get through the tough times, and I was very, very fortunate. I was, for the most part, it's in a rear area, but it was up north. It was an I Corps. And so I would think about happy times at home. Italians like to eat. And I remember my aunts and uncles, big family, my mom and dad. And so that's how I got through it. And so I said, well, you know what, this might be something good to write about. And so that was the premise for writing Augie's War. And then writers will probably can identify with this is when I got to the end of Augie's War, there was more to write. So there's Augie's World. Augie comes back. And the second book is pretty much about PTSD and how family helps Augie to get through that. And then also some things happen and he has to leave his family and go on the run because he's pursued by these bad guys. And at the end of that book, unfortunately for me, I didn't close it out. And so now I'm writing the third part of a trilogy.
Perfect. Because we need it. It has to be a trilogy. Do you know why it has to be a trilogy, John? Because there's no word for two books, is there? Right?
I don't know. For me, it was kind of a dumb thing because I said, I'm sick of the character, but on the other hand, there's something about him and about my experience is to say, I've got to finish this thing and do it the right way. So I'm definitely, this will be the end. I'm kind of halfway through it. And, but anyway, I'm sorry to bore you with all those details, but probably the greatest and most meaningful experience of my life was going to Vietnam. And again, I was fortunate. You talk about Christmas Eve, my Christmas Eve in 1969 there, I was on guard duty during the monsoons. And so I'm walking around feeling sorry for myself. But then, later on, I reminded myself that I was very fortunate because I was still I was kind of near the bunker line. I was doing that, didn't have any problems, except for the rain and the misery. But I thought later on, I said, if I ever get an opportunity to live through this and come back, I won't really complain about a lot of other things. It's kind of my version of a foxhole story without being in a foxhole. So, I mean, it was a very, very meaningful experience for me. It's been something that I share with other friends that have been in Vietnam or in the later wars. But you miss family, and my books are all about family. They're about not only about war, they're about family and how important family is to the healing that a lot of people need to go through. And when we got back from Vietnam, there was no such thing as PTSD. It hadn't been declared as some kind of a condition until about 10 years later. And so, my dad was in World War II. If you had problems, it was shell shock or that kind of thing, so it didn't have a name for it, didn't have a condition for it. And I've been listening to what other people have said, and I can tell you, I have the greatest respect and appreciation for the Donut Dollies, for the nurses that served. As a matter of fact, when I was in Chulai, up in the Americal Division, we had the first nurse that was killed in Vietnam when I was there, and I didn't even know it. My dad sends me a Time article in the Time magazine saying, did you know this person? And obviously I didn't know her, but it just goes to show you that there are a lot of ways to serve, and there are a lot of different people that serve, and that we deserve. We really need to make sure that they know that we appreciate them.
That we honor the Dollies. I want to show your book covers again because this got my attention. One of the most powerful novels I've read on the Vietnam War. This is a review. As a veteran of that awful conflict, I was absolutely riveted by the tale of Augie and his buddies, and every word rang true. And this is not, just anybody giving this endorsement. This is Homer Hickam, who's quite well known, a best-selling author. I think probably best known for Rocket Boys, which was made into a movie called October Sky. Yeah, October Sky. I mean, a superb writer, a very successful writer. And this absolutely got my attention, John. Can I ask you why you chose to write a novel instead of a memoir?
Well, I went to Catholic school. Like a lot of people here talking about that. And I was not a really good student. And it was one of those kids, like a lot of us, who, when you'd go for the PTA meetings, they would tell your mom and dad, he has a lot of potential, but he doesn't really do a whole lot. And he's not really good at math. Well, I never was good at math. I could write. And so I went to journalism school, and I was a writer. And when I went to Vietnam and I got back, I got an early out to go to graduate school, and I started going to the library at WVU, which I'd never gone to when I was an undergraduate, to write this novel. So I wrote about 3 chapters. Then life intervened. I got married and had a child, so put it off for like 40 years until I retired. And then my wife said, I write about wine and food. And my wife said, you got to find something to do. You can't start opening a bottle of wine at 10 o'clock in the morning, and which I kind of disagree with, but in any event, so that's why I wrote the book. I mean, that's how I started finishing the first novel, and then the rest, I just kind of the second one kind of followed that. So that's it.
Well, I'm looking forward to opening these books and reading them myself, John, and then, having you maybe come on again and having a conversation about them.
I'd be very happy to do that. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about them.
This is wonderful. Joe Griffiths, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Brown, Americal Division, very popular division in Vietnam. I went my senior year. I was in Cardinal Dockery High School with a Marine Vietnam veteran, Charles Crescent. His brother was a junior in the Americal Division. I think the smile on your face, you may have heard of Michael Crescent. He's Philadelphia's only Medal of Honor recipient. And we were fortunate enough a few years ago, they named the VA hospital in Philadelphia for Michael. Did you know Michael or of Michael?
No, I know the name. As a matter of fact, my phone, the most famous person that I had anything to do with over there was Rocky Blyer. And that was, I actually wrote the award citation for him for a Silver Star, which they downgraded to a Bronze Star at the time. That's what I did. And so, but I did not, but I know the name. So many times I've written, I had the whole time I was there, of all the people that were put in for, the Congressional Medal of Honor, there was only one that I had that had actually happened, and unfortunately, most of those people were posthumously awarded. But no, I know the name, and I don't know when he was there, but that is a famous name over there in America.
This is fascinating, John. You wrote Rocky Blyer's citation.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know how to describe this other than to say that I was going out to when I left what they call the combat center in July in I want to say probably March of '69. I was being sent out to an LZ to be an armorer. If my wife laughs about the fact, cutting the grass is a mechanical experience for me. But I had gone to AIT, and the last 2 weeks of where I was in like a supply AIT, it was to take an armorer course, 50 cal down to, mortars, small mortars, and that kind of stuff. So when I get over there, typically, so I don't get supply. I get sent out to the boonies up on an LZ. But fortunately, somebody saw my 201 file and said, you're a journalism guy. We need a writer at the awards and decorations. Can you do that? And so we're in that process. That's where I got this site. This, the lieutenant or the commanding officer sends this stuff, and this guy did this, write it up. And so I wrote it up, and they put him in for a Silver Star, and he got a bronze.
Oh man! Well, we should have you and Rocky on together. That's cool.
Yeah. I've never met the guy, but I've always been a Steers fan. I'm from northern West Virginia, so every thing in Pittsburgh I love. And my wife's actually from New Kensington, but I kind of like Pitt, but not when they're playing West Virginia. But other than that, I'm a Pittsburgh guy.
But other than that, you've not met. You've got to meet Rocky Blyer. We've got to get you two together, either online or in person. I think that'd be the coolest thing. And I see Annette likes Rocky too, because he's originally from Wisconsin, right, Annette? Right.
Yeah.
So
Rocky.
Yeah, in fact, he's from Appleton, and I used to live in Appleton, and I worked at the Chamber of Commerce that was next door to the restaurant that his parents owned, because we would go out there and eat lunch every day, and it was Rocky Blyer's parents' restaurant, and he would come sometimes.
Oh, that's so neat. That's so interesting. Yeah. The other famous person from Appleton?
Harry Houdini.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Harry Houdini.
Too.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Now look, Michael Horton, you are so patient, and you've been waiting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Bob, I'm gonna have Michael go ahead, because he's gonna rip my head off. All right. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you so much for waiting. I know you're joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had a wonderful conversation a couple weeks ago about an organization that you founded. You're an Air Force veteran, and you're one of you're certainly the director. I think you're also the founder of this great institution in Tulsa called the Coffee Bunker. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what the Coffee Bunker does?
Sure. The Coffee Bunker is a nonprofit in Tulsa. We're in our 13th year. And basically what we do is support veterans, military, National Guard, reservists, their families in all aspects of their transition back to civilian life. So we will, this year, we will have served probably into this year around 3,000 veterans in everything from where's lunch to how do I get into my doctoral program, everything like that. So it's a pretty broad thing. I do have to say I'm not the founder. A lady named Mary Ligon is the founder. She and others founded the Coffee Bunker after her tour into Fallujah. Marine's son came home, and his transition ended in a suicide, and that's where they founded it in 2010. So that's what the Coffee Bunker is all about, that. And it's just a wide range of things that we do, from helping guys with the very least thing that they can do, all the way to major career changes and things like that. So it's a pretty busy place.
I love the concept of the Coffee Bunker because it doesn't have, the bar is low to enter it. In other words, you don't have to, fill out forms. You don't have to apply and prove that you're a veteran. It's a place that you could just literally walk into and start getting a friendly referral for, what you might be looking for, whether it's, a better job or a job or a stay or just a network to get to know. What a wonderful, I'm imagining that you say a lot to people who come in. I don't know the answer to that, but I know somebody who probably does.
We say to people, if they'll sign up with us, they'll never have to worry about who to call or anything. Okay. And then right above our front door, I guess you saw that sign that says, everybody needs a bunker.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our motto with that. And we want people to know it's a comfortable place, a safe place, and a place that they'll get all the support that they need to get their civilian life started. So, yeah.
And right now, so your in-person brick and mortar location is in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's correct.
You're rolling out a virtual bunker that will be available through your website, right? Coffeebunker.org.
We'll be able to serve veterans anywhere they are around the globe, I guess. So we're very connected to the Joint Base in San Antonio, out in San Diego, and now then it's a wonderful thing here to be in connection with you guys to spread that out toward the East Coast. So it's really a wonderful thing to bump into you guys and get connected.
Absolutely. And I could imagine that you've probably thought of, I don't know, opening up a coffee bunker somewhere else in Norfolk, Virginia, or, another location. But you think that you'll be able to definitely broaden your reach.
You guys give us the idea. It's right here. You're doing it already. That's the way it is in the future. I would like to shift the geography of the Christmas stories.
Okay,
because I've heard Barcelona and I've heard Vietnam and I've heard Hawaii. And my Christmas of 1968 was spent 500 miles north of Nome, Alaska, at a little Air Force station called Cape Lisburne Air Force Station. I believe that night it was a balmy 50 degrees below zero. And there at Cape Lisburne, we had about 80 guys there in a very tight year. You couldn't go home during that time because it was a minimum manpower installation. So we would have, I guarantee you, they would send no dollies to Cape Lisburne because they were too afraid there'd be a snowstorm and they would get iced in for 2 or 3 months and they couldn't go home. So that was not a place for them to go. I do have a historical question for the dollies. Does anybody know when? Yeah, there it is. There's Cape Lisburne.
I'm sorry, before you ask your question, that looks like a miserable place to be. How long were you there?
364 days. Yeah.
And I bet your iPhone reception was just terrible.
There was none. There were no computers and no television. Okay, nothing. But I'll give you guys a little advantage. If you're over to the left here, this is about 7,000 feet up to the point of this cape. And if you see, there's a little road that would go up the left side. But if that road were to become impassable for whatever reasons, you can see on right where the little dark station, you can see the cables running down there. So there was a cable car. And that was our way of rescuing them if they got in trouble up there, because that was a part of that deal. So pretty. There's a lot of places that the military sends guys and gals to serve that people don't know about, that are just miserable, kind of places like that. And so our Christmas was it was a very tough place to be. But I was going to ask some of the Donut Dollies, do they remember when it was changed from Donut Lassies in World War I to Donut Dollies? They were originally called the Donut Lassies.
I've never heard the Donut Lassie thing.
Okay. Well, the Donut Lassies have a rich history all the way back into World War I through the Salvation Army.
Yeah, we know that, but Betsy, you know about the Lassies?
No, but the Donut Dolly term started in World War II because they actually had donuts.
Yeah.
In Korea, they had donuts. In Vietnam, we did not have donuts, but the name stuck with us throughout the Vietnam tour.
You had Kool-Aid.
Thank you. The other history I wanted you guys to, maybe you've heard about, have you ever heard of the story of the Hello Girls?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Okay. It's a very interesting story. There's a book by that title, The Hello Girls. And so I won't go into a deep thing here, but it's another one of those groups of people, of women that we just need to pay homage to for their heroism and their skills back in World War I.
And I want to show one more picture of you before we move on. This is another. There you are.
I want to see the other one where I'm on the beach.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on.
That's the ocean out to the right there. Okay. I sent one more.
Yeah, one more.
Hold on a second. I live in Fairbanks and it's 32 below right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I will stop complaining about the cold weather that we're getting here in Pittsburgh. Here we go.
The other picture was a picture of me surfing on there you go. That's the ocean all frozen out there by the beach.
This is a serious question, Michael, and then I want to go to Bob because he's had his hand up so long. And Sam Christie, if you have anything to say, please do speak or forever hold your peace. I know that you know a lot of Donut Dolly history, but I want to ask you, Michael, before we leave, did people go batty up there? That isolated for that long, no TV, probably very little radio. I mean, was it tough? Was it tough mentally?
It was a very difficult place to be psychologically and emotionally because we weren't allowed to call out.
Oh,
so we couldn't talk to anybody. It was kind of it wasn't. I mean, the Russians knew that we were there, but we had to maintain silence for the most part out of there. So yeah, it was a very difficult situation in that case. So
how many years did you put in the Air Force, Michael?
6. That was my last year.
That was your last year. Oh boy. Yeah. No wonder you got out. How good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll join us again anytime you have anything that you want to, word to get out about the Coffee Bunker. Let us know. We could email, we could add it to our emails, our website. You could come on and talk.
They can post the website in the chat there, and I would enjoy hearing from people.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Michael Horton, the coffeebunker.org. That's where you go, coffeebunker.org. Sean, if you want to look it up and put it in the chat, that would be great. Bob McCormick, how are you?
Pretty good. I had 2 Christmases overseas, one in Vietnam and one in Italy, just outside of Florence.
Which was better?
Talk about 2 different. Oh, definitely not. There's no question of that. My one in Vietnam wasn't too bad. I was at a fire base and we had good food and it was decent.
Now, did they bring the food out to you because it was the
No,
holiday?
we had a mess. It was the Forward Tactical Operations Center. So we had a lot of command officers there all the time. The brigade commander had his office there. There's a whole story about that, but that's for another time. But he had his mess there. So we had rather good chow for a fire base. We walked in during Easter for a Friday, we walked in and had lobster tail. In the mess hall. Talk about falling over.
Yeah, you don't hear. I mean, I hear those fire bases were typically pretty nasty, remote places. I don't.
No, it wasn't. We were just south of Saigon.
Okay.
We had to go to Saigon I had to go to Tonsanut Air Force Base to get water. So we weren't very far at all. That was the closest potable water supply.
And you were with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade.
Yeah. Yes. It was called Fire Base Horseshoe Bend, or the Fishnet Factory, because that's what the building was a fishnet factory. We slept between the fishnet machine, the machines that made the fishnets.
Oh my. What an experience.
And I was supplying the electrical power.
And then your other Christmas was in Italy. Not too bad.
It was in Italy. I spent that mostly with with some of the more senior NCOs. They invited us to our houses. We did duty, like he was saying, because somebody still had to be charge of quarters and charge of things. So we did that stuff, but being just young, no families, but there's a lot of families there. A lot of time, got to see a lot of time in Florence, in the cathedrals and stuff there. So it was quite a change of pace.
And speaking of Florence and cathedrals, here is a young Mark Spirdigliozzi on his first Holy Communion. And you could see, I guess these are surplices, right? And your brothers?
Yeah, those are my two older brothers. Incidentally, these are the only 3 out of 9 left. So the one brother is in Lakeland, Florida. The shorter of the 2 brothers behind me, one is in Michigan, but they actually served as older boys the day of my first Holy Communion, circa May 1st, 1954.
Oh. This is you. You were a cutie, Mark.
That's what my wife still tells me that, Todd.
Yes. Now, obviously, you are wearing your older brother's hand-me-downs because these pants look a little too big for you.
They were called hikers because you had to hike them up under your armpits, Todd. And my brothers were all hidden because they had the surplus on.
I love it. I love it. Oh, these are such great pictures, such great memories. I do want to let people know that we do have a program coming up tomorrow night, and it is going to be an interesting one, especially if you're interested in World War II. The basis of the program is this. The grandson of Admiral William Bull Halsey's steward, Filipino steward, discovered his grandfather's logbook, his journal from World War II. I mean, this is a guy who was right by Bull Halsey the whole war, and he kept a journal. And he's been transcribing the journal, working with Lars McKee, and he's going to come on and talk about his grandfather's service, about the role of Filipino stewards in the Navy, both in World War II and then later. And Glenn Flickinger is going to be hosting. I'll be the wingman tomorrow night, and that'll be our last program of 2020 tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I do encourage you to join us if you can. I do want to let people know, I see that Larry, you have your hand up. Here's a picture of Larry. Larry, how are you? How do you feel about being our cover boy for our next VBC magazine?
I'm still waiting for my extra royalty check.
It's going to be a long wait, Larry.
I wanted to share just Christmas of 1966. I spent on a missile site on top of a Minuteman missile. It's at 20 below zero. And the following Christmas, I was on a bunker in Tuiwa. So it was kind of two extremes as far as weather. And for the life of me, I cannot remember the Christmases in Dover, Delaware when I came back.
When you came back.
Yeah, I cannot for the life of me remember whether I was on duty those during the holiday or whether I was off. But I was a desk sergeant when I came back, and I just cannot remember for the life of me. 69 and 68 and 69, but 66 and 67 I remember distinctly.
Oh, about that. This is our next magazine is coming up. As you can see, Larry and Lou Nudie are on the cover. And this is from our trip in 2018 to Vietnam. We are doing that trip again. We also went in 2020. We're doing the trip again in 2023, November and December for 2 weeks. We go from Hanoi down to the Mekong Delta. Everybody is welcome to join us. The information on the trip is in this magazine. The magazine is at the printer right now, and it should be in your mailboxes first week of January, I would say. If you don't get it in the mail, it's because we don't have your address. Let us know your address. We're happy to send these out free of charge. This is how, this is how people find out about us. What we do is we take the stories that we hear, like the stories tonight, we write them up, we put them in a magazine, and we send it out. It's fascinating, the stories that we hear and the stories that we're able to share. I decided to write an account, I guess, of our trip to Vietnam. That first trip that I took to Vietnam as somebody who had taught courses on the Vietnam War for many years, and it was a privilege and an eye-opening experience to go to the country for the first time. So again, this is our VBC magazine. Let me know if you'd like to get it in the mail. If you don't currently, Todd@veteransbreakfastclub.org. I also want to let people know that we will be back on Monday nights on January 9th. We're going to do a program with tin can sailors. That is sailors, people who are in the Navy who served on destroyers. Let us know if you served on a destroyer. Would love to have you join us, share your story, and let other people know. If you know of somebody who served on a destroyer who you think could join us, let me know, and I'll invite them to be on and share the story. The following week, Michael Horton, you better be here. This will be on January 16th. We're doing radar station veterans, sharing their stories about their service. They have a wonderful huge and very active Facebook group, and that alerted me to the idea of how neat it would be to do a program with them. So I hope you can join us in the new year. If you cannot join us tomorrow night, I see that it is 8:36, so we've gone over time here a little bit. Is there anybody else? I feel so badly. We always leave so many stories, I know, in the room. I know there are many more than we could cover. Oh, Deb Bussinger, I'm going to have you make a quick pitch because you are doing such great work at the Military Aviation Preservation Society Museum in Canton, Ohio. I would love to do a VBC trip there in 2023, but I know that one of the things that you've been doing is you've been interviewing veterans, and you're especially focusing on Donut Dollies.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, we have a few things we're focusing on, but we want to do a display up in our new Vietnam room. So we have reached out to a few Donut Dollies. Some of them are here tonight, and we also had a couple interns who happened to be doing a Women in History project as one of their history classes, their history students, and they also did a presentation during that class on the Donut Dollies. So we're very excited about it. We have some artifacts. Sam sent some artifacts, and Renee is going to send us her uniform. So we really want to work with them to get their message sent out, how they want to get it sent out. And then also with the Vietnam veterans who talk to them, how they, how they received them and how they felt about them being there.
Right. So yeah. So if anybody is interested in being interviewed, if you haven't been interviewed yet by Deb and the Maps Museum in Canton, Ohio, they're doing great work there. Please do let me know, and I can put you in touch with Deb. Thank you, Deb, for joining us very much. Sam Christie, have you done an interview with them yet? Have you scheduled one?
Sam and I have been in back and forth.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, it is so great to see everybody. Please have a wonderful and safe and healthy and happy holiday. Have a good rest of 2022. If I don't see you tomorrow night, I will look forward to seeing you in the new year. All right. Sean, any last words?
Just Merry Christmas, everybody. I will see everyone in the new year. And it's been a pleasure and an honor this whole year. It's just
Truly.
been a fantastic 2022 with
Both
everybody.
of them, a pleasure and an honor.
Mhm.
Pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.